Minds of Moria, guys, chapter 2. Let's dive into it. All right, guys, so got some feedback on the chapter 1 video that I made a couple days ago, and so far it seems like you guys are pretty interested in me diving in to the other chapters, so I'm kind of excited to do that. I do want to make this, like I said, probably each of the chapters separate videos, and maybe like once a month or once every other month, I'll do like an updated guide on, as new characters come into the game, what is good, what else has been added, right? Like, we're just not going to see a lot of change, I don't think, from this week to next week. It's just not worth it. Or maybe I could do like top overall teams on a more consistent basis if that's something you guys want. But going into chapter 2, right? So the big things between chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, most of you guys know if you've been playing the game. Chapter 1 and chapter 3, big on AoE abilities because you're playing against the waves. Chapter 2 and chapter 4, all about single target. So kind of a different style of play in order to get your teams to sort of act and do what you need them to do in order to clear high scores in those specific chapters of the raid. So if we go ahead and look into the Discord of the same one we looked at the other day within my guild, Pants of Hulk, this is coming from our top guild. We have 7 guild teams within this one overarching guild that I'm a part of. And the one that is showing the scores here from last week. Usually this gets updated every week, so we might see an update later this week, but I wanted to get the video out now. And so this is from the 12-18 scores. And again, just to kind of like show where they are and almost kind of tying into the video I made yesterday, here's like a +1 if you're not aware of it, LOTR.GG, another great resource website. I'm not going to dive into it here because this is for a separate, video, and want to stay on track and not keep this video going too long. But this is another fantastic, useful tool if you want to dive into all the characters in the game, the glyphs, kind of like checking like, oh, if I made him a gear 7 versus a gear 8 versus 9 or level 50 versus 55, 60, you can kind of see like how the stats change. You can see it in game too if you kind of like, just move the needle and sort of see like, oh, if I leveled him up, what is going to change on this character? But it's nice to do it like, on a website instead of having to do it in game. And so I just wanted to show this just in case like anyone was sort of aware. Like, we know STZ is probably like the top guild in the game, right? They got like 5 teams in the top 10. But as you can see, POH, Flock of Smeagol's, this is the team that we're referencing. They're part of the guild that I'm on. And they're number what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're a high performing guild, 11 million total power, a lot of spenders in there, right? So this data it's good data, right? Like, this data is going to be enough to fully understand what a built out squad can do and perform at this point in the game with glyphs and everything, right? So, all right, guys, so let's dive into the video here. So we got a couple honorable mentions in my top 10 because we do have 12 teams here listed in the Discord. Mordor coming in at number 12. No real surprise. They're just not really a very good raid team right now, right? With Haradrim performing pretty well and Goblins now being sort of like the legendary unlock, no one's really building the Mordor. So maybe one day they'll be a stronger team, but for now, probably just avoid at all costs if you haven't already started working on that group. The Dol Guldur, we only have the 3 characters. I'm super excited for when they come out and hopefully see like the full 5 at some point in time. But again, just another honorable mention. They're probably not a team that you're really building out to try and push through in chapter 2. And as I go through like all these chapters, I do want to make like more in-depth guides. And as I run the raids myself, I'd like to go and sort of show like what I'm doing and kind of give some feedback of like how to approach the raids if that's something you guys are interested in. But for these, they're just kind of like, hey, like here's your top 5 to top 10 teams who you should really be thinking about building. And if they kind of like slide into multiple chapters, so you're getting like your best bang for your buck. So like your Rivendells, your Haradrims, your Rohan, right? Like those teams are kind of good in like all chapters. So they're awesome to build into those teams because they're not just like a 1 chapter machine. Like the Gondor squad's like super strong, but they're only super strong in 1 chapter. They're not really good across all 4. Whereas Rivendell's top 3 every time. Haradrim's like top 5 every time. So just something to keep in mind. But as we go into it, like here we go, chapter 2, you got Gondor as that number 10 spot, right? They kind of need like something extra that they just don't have in like their true form. So you could slide in like a Strider kind of given here as sort of that inflict burning that they're missing, like something to sort of give a little bit extra value. But Gondor is like your number 10 in performance right now and kind of struggling to like really get to that 900k consistently, if at all. Number 9 is going to be like hybrids. This is kind of just like your filler. You got like your 3-4 really good teams. Who do you got left that you've built out that has, gear tier 6, gear tier 7, maybe they're level 50, maybe not even level 50, right? Like, I mean, this game isn't that old, so not a lot of people have, you know, 5, 6, 7 raid teams sitting at 6, 7 star, fully geared out, 10,000 power. Shit, I don't even have that. My best characters in the game, because I went so wide so early and made that mistake, my best teams are like 7,000 power, which is like honestly not great. And kind of speaking of that, we just did our raid and I just finished chapter 4 actually before recording this video, and I'm actually surprised how much improvement I did week over week, because one of the things that I was telling my guild, and not to go on a rant here, but just real fast, I told my guild, I said, hey, I'm only going to track our raid scores like monthly, because there's no easy way to do it in this game. You have to manually enter the numbers in for every one of your team members, right, to get the raid logs, because you could do a screenshot and then export that out and do a little bit faster if you wanted to use that method with kind of like the text to, you know, whatever features that exist online. But for me, it's like, then I have to take, you know, 25 screenshots. I'm just going to enter it manually in Excel. But I was looking at my raid scores from last week to this week. And again, I'm not any powerhouse player here, barely pushing over 4.5 million score across all 4 chapters. So I'm not one that's like your 10 million player. Hope to be there in the next few months as I continue to play the game and build out some of these squads to get consistent 900k scores on all chapters. But if I'm looking at my scores from last week real quick on the screen that I have over here, I did 1.3 million total score in chapter 1 last week, and this week I did 1.5, so small increase. Chapter 2 only about 100k more, 700 to 800,000. I got about 150,000 in chapter 3 and 200,000 from 400k to 600k in chapter 4. So I went from 4.16 mil to 4.7 million score personally in just 1 week's time. And that's not like, oh, I added a bunch of glyphs or anything like that. Like, just passively upgrading my team over the past week, just seeing small improvements from Rivendell, just seeing small improvements from my Haradrim as I've been able to slowly tweak some of their levels up, slowly tweak some of their gear tier up. And again, just running your basic, you know, 3 refreshes. I did a couple of like guild refreshes. I think I had enough to upgrade Bacaloo from 5 to 6 star. So that was a little bit of a power spike. I think I was able to upgrade Arwen and Elodin from 4 to 5 star. And then I was able to get Lord Elrond, his epic materials, to get him to level 5 on his passive leadership ability. Level 6, I'm still waiting until we get the in-game on day 7. And then that'll like push him again for next week's raid. So again, off a little bit of a tangent there, but just to kind of show like, on a weekly basis, you can actually see some pretty significant increases to your personal scores if you're tracking them. And if you're not, you should. Just even if you look at totals, like who cares from week to week or chapter to chapter, but like throughout the entire 4, a 500,000 score, if I can like get somewhere around that like every week for the next few months, like that's a huge gain to start getting those Gandalf personal shards, etc. But anyways, sorry to rant on. Just excited about this game. So number 8, Balin's Expedition, right? So Balin, one of my favorite characters. I kind of mention that in every video. I'm excited to get him kind of just ramped up, especially since he's not that hard of a farm, given he's just a hard node 60 energy cost character in the game. But they are missing some stuff, right, for chapter 2, and you might need to add somebody like extra to that team versus just like running like a straight, Balin's Expedition. And this one, they're running Balin with Rumil and Orphan, which are, again, tough because, they're kind of pay-to-win characters until they're released on a node, hopefully next month. And then you have Gimli and Legolas as kind of part of that fellowship, right? Then you have Goblins. Nice to see the Goblins, number 7, still kind of far down, but a lot of people are starting to think about Goblins. And I think as people are building the Goblins, they're starting to see like they're not actually that bad of a team. Like they have a lot of that. They die, they come back, a lot of like that sort of like counterattacking stuff. So they're a fun team. When I first started playing the game, I'm like a big Goblin fan, World of Warcraft. I love the Goblins and such. And so I wanted to build them out, but like when I saw Grey Goblin was only a pay-to-win character, when I saw some of the other characters before they started moving some stuff around that you just couldn't have access to, I'm like, well, I don't want like a half-ass Goblin squad, right? Like I wanted the 5, and you can't. And at the time when I started playing, you had like Isengard that was sort of your 5 that you could just naturally get, like Road to Rivendell you can just get, right? Like they're kind of your free-to-play teams that you can build the full squad out. So I kind of focused on them in the early game. Then I started to realize like, oh, Elrond's coming back. I got to build up elves, and kind of pivoted to elves for a bit and so forth. So Goblins, though, great team. I think a lot of people are working on them. I think we'll start to see them sort of lift a little bit over and over as more and more people have them built out to that 5, 6, 7 star level. Number 6, you got Rohan, right? So Rohan pushing again, pretty consistently in difficulty 3, high scores close to 900k. They have a ton of damage, but they're just lacking the Bane, so that's really what's holding them back. Again, you could probably substitute out one of these characters in here. So in this case, we're kind of showcasing like Lomian and Ironhide as like the little filler Rohan 3 squad. But you could get somebody like, you know, Strider, Killy, Faramir, if you have any of them, as like the filler to kind of help with some of those missing pieces that they don't have. Road to Rivendell as just a full squad, great team. They don't have tons of damage, but as a free-to-play squad, it's perfectly viable in this chapter to go ahead and kind of push them as a squad that you can get pretty easily to 7-star over a course of time, with Sam being completely free, Pippin being just a guild node farm, Strider being completely free. So you're really just pushing the other two, right? And that gets you 7-star, pretty consistent 900k scores in difficulty 3. Then number 4, you got Isengard, one of the only chapters that they really shine in, and they do extremely well in here. So kind of excited to see that, because I do have a relatively strong Isengard team, and I'm not really pushing them anymore. But I feel like it's a team that a lot of people probably do have, given the fact that they are like a fairly accessible early team that they give to you in the game. So if you've already built into them, nothing wrong with that. Like, this team has a strong chapter 2 presence, and I'm excited to see like they're in the top 5 at least one of the 4 chapters from the latest scores from last week. Thorin's company, I'm not really surprised here, right? Like, Thorin's legendary release is right there with Lord Elrond, and a lot of people don't even have it at that 7-star level that a lot of other people now have been able to get to 7-star on that second go around of Elrond a few months ago. So seeing how well he's performing at not even like completely kitted out, just like level, you know, star 5, maybe gear 8, gear 9, level 60, probably most of the abilities on these characters here, but they can easily be a difficulty 4, 1.5 million team running just, you know, the dwarves with Feely Killy, right? Like, super good team, and I'm excited for Thorin's next go around. I really wanted him this first go around, but I did the math when they had those goblin offers where it was like, what, like 800 or 1,000 crystals to buy, you know, like you got 3 layers of like a great goblin, chef, and then either Orphus or whatever the other one was. And I was like, man, if I got like 10 to 15 shards, like the average, and it shared a 50-50 split, because most of my goblins were like 2-star at the time, I would have had to drop like $400. And I was like, there's no way I'm dropping $400 just to get maybe Thorin. And if I don't, like, oh man, I would have been so upset to have to spend more money, right? But no surprise, Thorin top 3 easily. He's going to be a top squad in a lot of these in these raids as more and more people build up the Thorin and the dwarves, etc. And then you got your last 2 here, right? So Rivendell, Haradrim, talk about all the time. Super good teams I'm working on personally. Rivendell, great team, not much to say, right? They're pretty much top 3 every single chapter. Just an all-around solid team. In this case, you're running your core 4. Normally that Lomian is that sort of flex guy. In this build, they're running Legolas, but you could also use a lot of other characters to kind of get that consistent Bane. So you get Goldbergs, Killy, Strider as sort of like call-out features here. I ran it with sort of the 5 that is called out here in the guild, and I did pretty well. And then Haradrim, just like the core 5. They're just so good. They're equipped with so much focus and crit that those glyphs just push them over the edge now. And they are seriously just, they're doing great. They're right there with the Rivendell on a lot of chapters. So I'm excited because these are the 2 teams I'm working on. And I think if you have the opportunity to also invest in these 2 teams, there's nothing but, you know, solid opportunity as you get them built out. So I just wanted to make a video on chapter 2. I know chapter 1, I got a lot of feedback saying that they appreciate the video. They liked a little bit of the insights, and that you guys wanted to see the other chapters to be released. So I wanted to get chapter 2 out today. I'm hoping to do chapter 3 and chapter 4, probably record them tomorrow and release them. So the next couple of videos that I'll be posting on my channel will be covering the 4 chapters. Then maybe I'll do like an overall tier list, because you can see, you know, if you're looking at this here now behind me, you can see you got chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right above my head is the overall. So I'll kind of go through all 4 of those plus the overall, and hopefully that gives a little bit of like high level insight of some of the best teams in the raid chapters for the 1 raid we have currently in the game. And then after that, yeah, we'll decide if we need to make more around the chapters for January, or maybe wait a month and kind of see if things change, or what kind of releases, if certain characters get added to nodes that maybe are more farmable to allow more people to have more character access, etc., etc. But wanted to get this out there for you guys. I know you're excited for it. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.